And we are live, everybody. It is WrestleMania week. I am John Pollock, and joining me now, he is the man that's riding shotgun with us. It is John Siino here on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel as we are officially kicking off our WrestleMania week shows. We're live for everybody today on the YouTube channel. If you want the audio version of this, it will require you to join the free tier at postwrestlingcafe.com, and then we'll be doing cafe exclusive shows Friday and Saturday at noon Eastern time for all of our members over there. We will give you all the relevant information that you will need to follow all of our coverage, but we would not be able to be covering WrestleMania to the degree that we do unless we had this man with us, John Siino, who is here with us. And John, how are you feeling on this Thursday, noon Eastern time?
I'm actually feeling really good. First of all, thank you for having me in this chair. It's a privilege. Shout out to both Wei Ting and Dickie Bird. Both are both fathers of two in the last week or so. So congratulations to both of them. So I'll do my best to try to fill this seat. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. You know, I chose to skip WrestleMania this week, so doing it from home was a daunting task. But I think I got myself ready. I got myself a cooling pad for my laptop, an extra monitor, and you know what? Since it's not only and let me get this right. It not only is it the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania this year, but it's also the 40th anniversary of myself. And because of that, I need to be a little bit more protective. So I got these glasses to help me with like all these lights I'll be staring at all day long. So this is a new gimmick that I guess I'm doing here. Siino with glasses.
Very, very Paul Levesque of you, John Siino. That's you're going to need that handiwork. Yes, congratulations for understanding how anniversaries work. You are miles ahead of WWE, as this is technically the 40th anniversary itself. Do want to make mention that we are going to be monitoring everyone in the chat room. We're not going to be hitting everyone up for super chats, but if any questions come along in the chats that we'll dive into, we'll keep our eyes open for those. If you want to throw in any points, feedback, questions, we will be monitoring the chat throughout the show. But we have a lot to get to. We are going to be looking ahead to some of the shows coming up tonight, looking forward a lot to this weekend. But let's first rewind about 14 hours ago or so when Spring Breakthrough concluded. I got a lot of my thoughts out on the show last night with Kate from Montreal. John, you were covering the show for the site, and I mean, this has been, I would say, a pretty, not just universally praised show, but like among the best episodes that AEW has ever produced. Where was your thought on Spring Breakthrough, at least night one of the new event?
No, I agree. I mean, the timing couldn't have been right. I don't think they planned it out for like their record-breaking show to happen the same week of WrestleMania. But if they had to pick a week, this is it, because they're definitely, like you said last night with Kate, it's gonna be hard for a lot of these matches for these shows to top what we saw last night. With not only the Mercedes and Athena match, but the Ospreay and Takeshita match, which is already one of my favorite matches of the year. I thought the show was excellent. If anybody who listened to Collision Course with me and Kate knows that I've been saying that I've been enjoying Collision a lot more than Dynamite the last couple of weeks. I feel like Collision's been a lot more wrestling heavy, while Dynamite's been more of the storyline. And they were able to really do both yesterday with the stories as well as the matches. The matches were fantastic. Obviously, the one point where a lot of people are kind of criticizing is the whole MJF thing with the ladies that he brought in. But that aside, I think the show was pretty much flawless and perfect. Like there was nothing I can say that was wrong about the show, with the exception of maybe the MJF thing. But I highly enjoyed it. Probably one of my favorite Dynamites, definitely of the year, the best Dynamite of the year, if not top 10 Dynamites of all time.
Yeah, I just came out of that show. I really thought it was like one of the best Dynamites, period, that they have produced. Like, I don't even put the Brody Lee tribute episode is such a different episode unto itself to really, you can't really make that a fair comparison point. I watched this show, and honestly, my immediate reaction was this was among the best wrestling shows I can recall watching. I mean, you had an all-time of a classic between Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita, a match between Mercedes Moné and Athena that on most weeks would have been the blowaway match of the week. Incredible crowd in Boston. Josh Alexander's debut, I thought, was handled really well. I like the fact that they had an angle for him after the show and tying him to Don Callis, which makes a whole lot of sense. And again, it'll be interesting to see what the follow-up is tonight. If I had a complaint, I just felt they didn't make enough of a push for Thursday night. It's an unfamiliar night, and maybe shooting some big angle or setting up some big match to draw you back for the next night. And you just had this incredible atmosphere that maybe that will be enough, that the momentum of this, you'll get some people that want to come back and check out wrestling on Thursday night. Because quite honestly, John, like, you cover this on Saturday nights, but I think for so many logistical and for reasons of just viability, the Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back, I think, is a way better handling of Collision than the Wednesday, Saturday dynamic, where you're going against a WWE show once a month, and I just think it's been a tough night for Collision, not to, the least of which would be a lot easier of talent that could do Wednesday and Thursday, and an easier night for your production. There's just a lot of reasons why I would want this Wednesday, Thursday deal to work for them.
Yeah, I agree with all your points there, especially with the fact that they could have pushed for something tonight. Like, I think last night you said that they could have saved the trios match for tonight. They could have definitely shot an angle for that, maybe reveal that Powerhouse Hobbs is going to be the third man. And then, the people are going to probably go to the show tomorrow regardless. It's the same venue. So why not have an angle that pushes over to the following night? Being on a Thursday is definitely an interesting experiment. According to Tony Schiavone, the reasoning why it switched to Thursday was because of college basketball. Nothing else going on Saturday. It was definitely the college basketball that got him to switch a day, sure. But it should be interesting to see how they do, because yeah, if it works out for them, why not maybe potentially move it to a Thursday? All you really have is Impact, but I don't hear too many people that watch Impact live. I personally don't watch it live. I pull up the TNA Plus app and watch it the following day. So I don't think it would harm them to go head to head with a TNA. And yeah, Saturday is tough. Like, even for myself, like, sometimes I want to do something on a Saturday and it's like, well, I got work to do. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. They don't want to really stay home till 10 o'clock on a Saturday, especially as we're getting, into the summer and the weather's getting a lot nicer now. Thursday is a lot more feasible for wrestling fans. They're already used to a Thursday night with, WWE having that time slot in the past, NXT having that time slot, TNA currently. So yeah, it should be interesting to see how this works out this week, and if it's something that they'll continue to do in the future.
So yes, we're gonna have a ton of coverage tonight on the site, including Collision coming live from Boston as well. So I also wanted to just for my own interest here, and I'm sure for a lot of the listeners too, is that you also split your time between Post Wrestling and at Cage Match. Yep. And for a weekend like this, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are looking out for match recommendations and what is going to stand out. Can you tell me a little bit about your role at Cage Match, and as well for a weekend like this, probably the extra demand for people to be seeking out what has become pretty much the universal database for pro wrestling matches and cards coming up?
Yeah, so believe it or not, this year, a lot of the team members at Cage Match are actually at the event. They're actually at WrestleMania weekend. So I feel like I'm one of the few people that are actually at home watching these shows and updating them in real time. Usually, on a weekly basis, all the shows that I cover on Shot in the Dark, like whether it be NWA, MLW, I usually, update those. But this week, I'm like, okay, if I'm watching these shows anyway, I might as well update as we go. I do that with my my reports for Post Wrestling. Whenever I do Dynamite, I update in real time in Cage Match as well. And currently, last night's Dynamite is right behind the Brody Lee show. It is currently the highest ranked Dynamite at 9.8. Obviously, that's still fresh. That score will go down as the days go by, but that's a really high score coming out the gate, because the last couple of weeks, it's not that the ratings have been low for AEW, but I feel like the interest hasn't really been there. In the past, like, as soon as the show is over, people will go and rate Dynamite right away. They'll rate the matches and everything. Now it takes a couple of days before like people actually like really start voting and whatnot. It doesn't flow as fast as it used to, but last night, as soon as the show was over, I put up that Mercedes Athena, the time for 21:12 seconds, and the 10 started running in right away. Like, the scores are coming in, so definitely the interest is there for AEW. But yeah, a week like this, it's really tough. But we have a lot of people that like that send in results, that send in time, so it definitely is a lot of interest as far as like people watching it from home that like to update it as well. But yeah, I'm trying to watch as much as possible and update. I was able to watch 2 shows last night with both the Dragon Gate USA Rebirth show and the GCW ID show, which I actually had a little bit of interest in because I've been following Evolve a lot lately. And I had a lot of the talent that was on there, and some talent that has been signed to WWE ID that hasn't even been showcased on Evolve at all that I got to see for the first time. So it was a nice little experiment, especially in front of a GCW crowd, I would say, that wasn't really invested, or even a lot of these people were unknowns to them. So just see like a reaction of a regular WrestleMania crowd to like a lot of these new faces was definitely an interesting viewing.
What were some of the highlights of the shows that you got to see last night?
Yeah, so for the ID show, it definitely was Evolve heavy. They were doing a lot of shooting a lot of angles. They have a lot of investment in the swipe right. Obviously they showed up on NXT, but they were like all over the show. The swipe right with the combination of Zeta Steel are definitely top projects in them. They're almost involved in like 3 different matches. They carried over a storyline with Izzy. If everybody remembers the Bailey girl Izzy Moreno, who started wrestling not too long ago, I feel like it's all but destined that she might get signed to WWE ID because she's been teasing it. The story going into this match was she had to win the match against Zara Zacker in order to earn an opportunity to be in this tournament to potentially get an ID, and Zeta Steel cost her the match. So it seems like they're definitely prolonging this storyline, and I feel like it's probably inevitable that Izzy will be ID'd at some point. They even ran a concurrent storyline with Fuego del Sol and Atticus Cogar, who are having a mask versus career match at Spring Break. So Fuego came out and kind of cost Atticus the match, where he was an outsider that had an opportunity to be in this tournament, and Fuego costed the match. So at least they're flowing storylines between the GCW show, which is something that is really refreshing to see. But yeah, it was like a lot of these people like that they never really heard of before, like a Freedom Ramsey. First time I've seen him, he really got no reaction. It was more of the GCW faithfuls, like an Atticus Cogar that got a reaction. Marcus Mathers, I said last time when I joined you in Way, who's going to be the person that's going to shine this year? And so far, it's been Marcus Mathers. He appeared on both this and the Dragon Gate show that were taped back to back in the same venue. And I feel like he gets a good reaction wherever he's in. So I'm definitely has my eyes on Marcus Mathers. I feel like he might be the person to watch this year. He might be taking over that spot that like a Speedball Mike Bailey had in the past.
Yeah, and I think that we will be. Before I move on, what would be like the match of either show that if you had to give one or two recommendations between the Dragon Gate show and the ID show?
So Marcus Mathers and Sam Holloway, who's another ID talent, had a no disqualification match. They've like had this like built-in storyline from back when they first got their ID contracts. The story was that like William Regal had given Holloway the contract, and then like Holloway said that Mathers wasn't like he wasn't up to par with him and whatnot. So they've been having a lot of matches in the Indies. So this is like their blow-off match, being a no DQ match. So I would definitely recommend that. And then the rematch, the main event was a rematch from the first ever Evolve show with Swipe Right and Jackson Drake against Jack Cartwheel, Cappuccino Jones, and Sean Legacy. I love Cappuccino Jones. Like whenever I see him, he's always like so happy, and obviously he's carrying his coffee with him. So it's definitely a fun gimmick to watch. So I would recommend those two matches. Dragon Gate USA. So Dragon Gate is a company I was never really too familiar with. Like when they ran the shows here in New York, like over 10 years ago, I never attended any of them, but I knew of the reputation of Dragon Gate who came out of it. So just to watch it was definitely interesting. You had Ultimo Dragon on there, obviously. The main event was good. You had Dragon Kid, some Dragon Gate like Japan talents like Shun Skywalker, who I'm familiar with. I had no idea that Dragon Kid actually defeated Eddie Guerrero on an episode of Nitro back like in '98 when he was known as the Little Dragon. So when they throw that fact at me, I had to fact check myself on Cage Match, and I was stunned that this guy is still wrestling here. So nothing really stood out too much on the Dragon Gate show. And I think that's like the overall consensus coming out of that. There was a trios match with Willie Mack and Rich Swann against Ben K, Heel, and Jimmy Lloyd and Alec Price. That's probably the one match I would recommend on that show.
All right. We're getting one question here, this relating to Evolve. How are Peter Rosenberg and Robert Stone on as a commentary duo?
They're fine. I mean, Robbie E is pretty much playing the same Robert Stone character. He's always like jealous of Stevie Turner because she's the GM there. So he's kind of playing like the kind of snarky heel in a way. Rosenberg is fine from what I've heard. I'm used to just hearing him from here locally on Hot 97. So whenever I hear him, I'm just so used to his voice. They're doing a fine job. I feel like it might be like a developmental for them as well to potentially get a role down the line, I would say. But not my favorite, commentary team that I've been hearing lately, but they're okay.
We're going to talk about a couple news items. An interesting one was this profile that Vanity Fair put out today. This was a big feature piece on Roman Reigns, Joe Anawahi, that was written by Tom Clute, and he pretty much was embedded with Roman Reigns over, I'm sure, a course of several weeks, but mainly focusing on, the day of the Rumble that this is set in. But it goes over a lot of interesting details. So I pulled out a few excerpts here. It notes the fact that Anawahi, who will be turning 40 next month, stating that his current deal with WWE expires after WrestleMania next year, and he admits that he is closer to the end than the beginning. Quote, "After I finish the contract that I'm in, we probably get another year or two max," he says. "Then it's time to take on a less physical form of entertainment." And I thought this was a noteworthy comment from Roman Reigns in that I would say 98% of wrestlers that will state, this is my end date. I've got 3 years left. I've got 4 years left. And then suddenly those 3 or 4 years creep up. Okay, I've got another contract in me. I mean, you're hearing Randy Orton. Like, I want to sign another 5-year deal after this. With Reigns, and you really do get it from the tone of this whole article, is that this guy has his eye on film and getting into movies. And I would say like it's not a very easy pivot to make, but it seems to be one that I I could, like, we already see the schedule that he's holding in WWE. This is one that I could very well see that it gets even more relaxed over these next years, that you could see this guy out. The fact that this guy is looking at like 2 to 3 more years of this even seems to me somewhat ambitious of him being around. But I mean, is that kind of what you look at in terms of the proximity for Joe Anawahi and a post WWE career?
Yeah, Roman Reigns, somebody else who's celebrating his 40th anniversary this year, definitely has his future intentions clear. He even like mentions in an article about how he was ready to just kind of wrap it up like years ago during the pandemic when he realized his character wasn't working. I feel like at that point he probably could have called it quits and started to look into entertainment. But he's being really like cautious about it. I think he compared himself to like Quentin Tarantino about being careful about choosing projects and whatnot. So I definitely see him going into the entertainment world. Definitely he has the look of it. Obviously, he has the character, the charisma for it. So I can definitely see something that in his future for sure. It's all about, how much longer he's going to do this, but he seems to already be set that he's going to be going into the entertainment or movie world. I think there's a project he had coming up with David Lynch, I think was the director, if I'm not mistaken. Or
he's filmed a scene in this movie called The Pickup that's coming up. He's doing a scene. It seems like it's just kind of a cameo involving Eddie Murphy
Gotcha.
as well, that they dropped in this article as well. So yeah, that's, I really haven't seen enough of Joe Anawahi beyond the Hobbs and Shaw. Was that was the
Hobbs and Shaw spinoff was the one
right?
where he had like a non-speaking role. He was like kind of like a background character.
Yeah, it's like I can't watch him and state that, this guy has just all this unchecked charisma that could transfer over. But obviously that's and the fact is that you have in TKO these services that are going to open a lot of doors for you to make that pivot as strong as possible. This is not a case of like a Dave Bautista in 2010 that realistically had to start very much from the bottom in Hollywood to grow. That just did, his WWE cachet really was not that kind of currency in Hollywood at that time. There were a number of people interviewed for this. Rick Rubin was interviewed. Yeah, Rick Rubin, Nick Khan. Paul Levesque noted, quote, "I remember walking out to Dusty and saying, God, if that fucking Liaki kid is not a top guy here in 10 years, I don't know what the fuck we're doing," he said. And it's not just a look, it's an intangible factor. I get asked this all the time when we do tryouts. What is it we're looking for? I'm looking for that. I think it's an interesting insight as well into Paul Levesque, both of his talent assessment then and now. I think that you could see, like, the first time you see Liaki, it's like this guy screams a guy that WWE would have an interest in, and almost from Jump Street, like you looked at Liaki, eventually Roman Reigns being like somebody that they had very, very high hopes for. But they have had high hopes for a lot of people that did not come out of developmental. And like there was a time Mojo Rawley was considered like a big deal coming out of their developmental program as well. But I mean, that when the Shield was formed, like everyone knows the story of like Punk's recommendations, and it was like, no, Reigns is going to be like, ultimately this was a group built for Roman Reigns as the one that they saw the highest ceiling for, and he would ultimately achieve that with a long, long road to get there.
Yeah, the entire story is pretty remarkable with him, about how him and the Usos were building chairs and furniture for their sister.
Their older sister.
Sika one day was just like, are you going to be building chairs for your sister forever? And then Roman responded back with, well, are you going to teach me how to wrestle? And that's what kind of was the catalyst to start that. A lot of the story I actually I heard on I don't usually watch the biography WWE shows because I feel like it's a lot of information that I already know. But the one they did last year, right before WrestleMania, actually caught my interest because it was produced by Paul Heyman. That was probably one of the best pieces that I've seen as far as the A&E biographies go. And he kind of went into his whole story about how he didn't want to wrestle, but then his dad kind of pushed him to and whatnot. I do like the side of him, with the whole mobster mafioso ties, because people don't realize he is half Italian, half Sicilian from his mother's side. So I do like how he kind of embraces that aspect of the whole mob ties. So it kind of makes sense to me, and I kind of enjoy that aspect of him.
Yeah, and then it did get into the Janelle Grant allegations, and this is from the article. Anawahi tells me that the allegations from Grant are a stain on WWE. Quote, she's got to live with all these situations that happened, and hopefully she's in a place where she feels comfortable and she's secure in her own place. It's embarrassing. That's stuff you don't want to hear about. You don't want your family to hear about. Anawahi says that McMahon reached out last year to wish him a happy birthday, but the former CEO and chairman has, by all accounts, completely removed himself from WWE affairs. And I thought this was first of all, I was like somewhat surprised that they addressed this. This is also maybe the first time we have had a representative on behalf of WWE that is actually showing sympathy towards Janelle Grant.
Yeah.
That this has not just been about a defensive posture about the company or regarding like Vince being the only focus of this. Like actually there is a victim in this whole thing, and hopefully she is okay. I found that somewhat refreshing in a lot of this, that, as I've said so often, like we have gone through this case so much that Janelle Grant has almost stopped being a person to people, and it's just like this anonymous figure to so many people that you stop thinking of her as a human being that has gone through what she has alleged by Vince McMahon and others.
Yeah, this is like the first time on record that Roman's spoken about this, right? And I do agree. We haven't heard. I want to say maybe Seth Rollins might have spoken about this as well, kind of like asking for sympathy and Janelle being embarrassed with the whole thing, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, to hear it out of Roman's mouth is definitely definitely eye opening to hear somebody on his level say that. So it's good to hear that, and like the whole like what Vince reached out to him only for his birthday, he said. So he pretty much just kind of confirmed that he is out of the picture 100%. So
would that text have been a happy 40th anniversary on your 39th birthday?
Probably would have been, right? From Vince now. I mean, you saw the texts he would send to Shane McMahon, right? It was like happy birthday. So it's probably one of those type of things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. After reading that complaint, I don't really want to read any Vince McMahon texts anymore.
Nope.
But then we go to the portion, and John and I will field this one. But this is the one that's going to get all the traction. Okay, folks. It starts off, Anawahi is a registered Democrat. Okay, let's see where this one goes. But he considers himself a centrist. In the most recent election, however, he says the choice was very clear. Quote, one person was giving us information, one person was answering questions. So it wasn't that hard, he says. When I ask him if that means that he backed Trump, Anawahi pauses for a few seconds. Quote, I support our president. Trump is one of those guys where he's got a vast history and a huge background. He's been in entertainment. He's been in big business, politics. At this point, I'm supporting a bright future for our country, positive and competent leadership, for us to be what we're supposed to be a world leader and carry that respect and do what a world power like us should be doing. Now, I would very much be curious. I am assuming this quote was made back in January. I would state that the global opinion of the U.S. has somewhat dramatically changed, at least from a government standpoint, with the latest tariffs and such. But he goes on to state that, that was basically the point here. But I'm sure a lot will be made of this. And listen, I really do not care either way what the politics of these performers are, but it is, from like an outsider's perspective, always interesting to see how these people kind of handle what is such a lightning rod of like your political identity is very much going to inform how your fan base views you in these times. And it's more so interesting that you could tell like he is speaking in somewhat vague terms here without outright stating who he voted for in the last election, but allowing you to read between the lines. And just naturally, John, this is going to be an aspect of this article that I think will circulate pretty heavily.
Yeah, the thing is, like, whenever anybody, whether it be Vanity Fair or any other publication, does an article on somebody from WWE, you're going to have the tie-in with Trump there, and obviously the Linda McMahon connection, as well as just him being a WWE Hall of Famer. They dropped in this article a couple times that Trump is a WWE Hall of Famer. So the question is going to be asked. He obviously tried to like not be too specific. He did mention at one point like he doesn't agree with everything that Trump says, but he didn't really go too specific. I would like to maybe hear a little bit more about what he doesn't agree and what he does agree on. But yeah, these questions are going to be asked to pretty much any wrestler going forward. I feel like it's just inevitable at this point.
And then the final part here that I found kind of interesting here. So the writer here is shadowing him during Royal Rumble, just giving you like Reigns on the flight to Indianapolis, just casually notes, I'm not winning the Royal Rumble tonight. I mean, obviously, it's a small thing, but it does tell you like there was a trust factor here with Tom Clute here in terms of like the fact that, if for nothing else, you do get the feel that Anawahi had a comfort level in this situation. It was probably over several in-person sessions that they had here, but goes on just kind of like describing the WWE and its business model and his own perspective being there in person in Indianapolis. There are plenty of adult fans here at the Royal Rumble, but the majority of them almost certainly started watching in their youth. It's comparatively more lighthearted than a UFC event where the brutality is on full display and the vibe is similar to a Trump rally. I think he nailed it on that one. Khan, that being Nick Khan, citing Nielsen data, told me there is only about a 13% overlap between WWE and UFC viewers, which tracks with my own experience attending both. At the Royal Rumble, where there are at least 2 adult fans cosplaying as 80s icon Macho Man Randy Savage, the atmosphere is more Comic-Con than MAGA. So that's quite the contrast between these two. But like, even if you are taking that number at face value, I would completely buy that the crossover is probably at the lowest it's been in terms of WWE and UFC over, I would say, the past 2 decades. When, you know, at the peak during the Brock Lesnar run, I know that those numbers were exceptionally higher at this point. But like, the crossover between WWE and UFC, like, it's there, but they are hardly hitting you over the head with pushing you towards either. Like, they do small things like a UFC pay-per-view. The main card might not go head-to-head if there's a PLE that night. They try to create these weekends out of different shows that they have taken to various cities. But it is very much, I feel, 2 separate audiences that you're largely catering to, and it's very different. Comic-Con versus MAGA. I don't know if I would make. I don't know if WWE is Comic-Con, but I do understand the comparison point.
It definitely is more Comic-Con opposed to MAGA. I have been to wrestling shows where it does feel more MAGA, and I would say that WWE is a little bit more on the Comic-Con side for sure.
So there you go. That is the Vanity Fair piece on Joe Anawahi. A very interesting article, I think, that dropped today. There is probably going to be just a boatload of media coming out regarding various personalities and such that are going to be all over the WrestleMania promotion. And on that note, we're going to play this one clip. This is Paul Heyman on the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast with Jimmy Traina. And this was, I pulled this clip because I found it to be an interesting one. It is Paul Heyman being asked about the John Cena heel turn, which was received very, very well, and the lead up to WrestleMania, if this turn has worked. And Paul Heyman, to me, a very diplomatic Paul Heyman as he breaks down this turn by John Cena, and then we'll get some of Ceno's reaction.
You're not going to come on here and say you don't like it, but tell me how you think it's gone, if there is anything you would do differently, if you think it's been done perfectly, your assessment of this heel turn that people wanted for a long time, didn't happen, and now has happened. As he's
my assessment is I'll be able to give you an assessment after Sunday night.
Okay.
Because then we'll see how it works.
Right.
There are several short-term goals, let alone long-term goals, that John Cena has.
Right.
And in those short-term goals, they apply to the long-term goals. And here's the best analogy that I can give you on that.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is designed in baseball to cross home plate to score a run, does it matter how they get to first base? Does it matter if they hit a single or if they take a walk? Does it matter if they get hit by a pitch? The answer is get to first base. Once you get to first base, have you accomplished your goal? No. The goal is to get past home plate. So if they steal second, have they accomplished their goal? No. They're on second base. Now, your goal from home plate is to go to first, second, to third, and then home. So if I get to first base, I'm there. My short-term goal has been completed, but I may fail in the long-term goal. I get to second base, my short-term goal from first base is completed. And I can't look at first base and go, I got to get to third. You can't get to third without going to second. So John Cena is rounding the bases right now.
Right.
Has he hit on every level of his short-term goals? It sure looks that way to me. But if he doesn't get to home base, then it was all for naught. If he does, then this was a monumental success in a most interesting, compelling fashion.
A monumental success in the most That was Paul Heyman giving us his baseball analogy of the John Cena turn. We will not know until Sunday, and I am kind of curious, John, as you have watched this, and we're talking before SmackDown on Friday. They've got one more TV before this weekend, and whatever they end up doing on Sunday between these two. But if I was to go from March the 1st and the reaction to the turn at Elimination Chamber, how would you assess the past 6 weeks of television in terms of what is the main event of both nights of WrestleMania?
First of all, I thought I was listening to an Abbott and Costello routine right now with who's on first and who's on second. I thought we were doing like football analogies with the yard lines. Now we're doing baseball analogies, whatever. There was a lot of hype coming out of Elimination Chamber. Obviously, I had a lot of FOMO for not being in the building that day. I was like, oh, this is great. It's, the WrestleMania hype is here. And you could see it kind of slowly like going down. And I'm honestly pretty disappointed with how they treated the whole thing. The fact that they're not even mentioning The Rock. My son, he's 10 years old. He's like probably the biggest into wrestling he's ever been right now. And he's asking me like on a weekly basis, like, when are we going to see The Rock? Is Cody going to get revenge on Travis Scott? So if you have a 10-year-old asking this question, imagine what the rest of the wrestling fans are thinking of. Hopefully they can do something, at least on SmackDown, to kind of give us a little bit of hope, a little bit of hype going into WrestleMania. But hopefully they got something big planned, because I'm pretty disappointed with this entire, like, the follow-up. Like the initial turn was amazing. Everybody was talking about it, but the follow-up has been pretty down and disappointing, honestly.
Yeah, not to sound like Paul Heyman, but I mean, I think by Sunday, like, I just feel that my overall view of this is, would this turn have been more effective at WrestleMania? And today I am saying very clearly yes. All that is to say that I feel that if they do a good go-home segment on Friday, which, given Cena and Cody and the atmosphere you're going to have, I think it will be a pretty strong segment, that whatever they have planned for Friday. And Sunday, I'd like The Rock not being there. It's almost impossible to fathom him not being there. That if you do get his appearance, I think it wipes away any concerns people had in the lead up to Mania if you get that big appearance. But I do think this build was strong enough of just Cena being obsessed with going for this 17th title, and it's the star of one generation against the star of the other. And then if you were to end Mania with the turn, I just think that's so much ammunition coming out of Mania that you get the big turn, that you could have had your cake and ate it too, because it just felt like you shot this incredible angle, and the follow-up has just been so divorced from that angle that you haven't been able to truly capitalize on it. But we're also talking about a Mania that is going to be ultra successful, and it's really the end point that you come out of Sunday with, that if you nail the ending, then the past 6 weeks are, those complaints will dissipate.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as like Cena just leaving the ring on SmackDown. He places a Rubik's Cube in the middle of the ring just to get people like talking, because that alone, I think, was more interesting than anything that Cena's really said. He hasn't said anything about The Rock. So the fact that he put up this mysterious video with this New Japan shirt and a Rubik's Cube, that alone got some people interested. But I agree. I feel like the turn would have definitely made more of an impact on WrestleMania itself. But then, what could they really have done to hype up WrestleMania? Just the match alone, you think, would have been enough build? Like Cena and Cody just going one-on-one for the first time, I guess, at a WrestleMania stage?
I mean, granted, we have had, 3 Cena appearances in this whole lead up that I do, similar. But maybe, yeah, I'm in the minority that I still think it would have been like a really a strong build of just building up like this big first time ever matchup between these two, like in their current forms. Yeah. Obviously. Now the first night main event, I don't know how familiar you are with betonline.ag, but this showed up in my inbox today, and okay. You know what? There might be another red wave coming across your country, John, because they have surveyed every state. And this is how the country is voting between Punk, Rollins, and Reigns. So as you can see, I think we can look at CM Punk owning California and the Northeast. I think your coastal elites, and then it's Reigns that is the red wave, while it's the working class Midwest that might be the ones coming out on top of all of this, as they are going with Seth Rollins. But it looks like a majority government for the tribal chief Roman Reigns based on this this heat map that we have.
I'm just happy to see that at least Illinois is CM Punk. Oh, see, they got that right at least. Yeah, New York being Punk, I guess that checks out. Roman Reigns, Florida. Yeah, I guess it'll kind of make sense. This is so what they went ahead and asked people in every single state and got.
I have no idea the methodology behind this. This is Bet Online, and we have no affiliation with them. Did you vote? I mean, did you register to vote? Did you guys get a day off work to go fill in your ballot for Punk, Rollins, Reigns?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get that phone call. Telling me to make sure I vote for my WrestleMania 41 triple threat. No, I did not get that.
All right, there you go. Get out the vote, which we'll be doing in Canada actually in a couple of weeks, John. Let's talk a little bit about night. Well, I'm going to call this night one proper of WrestleMania week. We did have some shows getting out of the gate on Wednesday night. It looks like the early candidate for the Speedball Mike Bailey Iron Man of WrestleMania week award looks to be going toward Michael Oku, who not only is wrestling 4 matches today, but managed to work the ROH tapings last night in Boston. So he also had a cross-country flight today to get to Las Vegas to do all of these shows. So Michael Oku, he did a match with Nick Wayne that presumably will be on Friday's Honor Club show. But I guess tonight, the big ones that we can look ahead to, I mean, we have Defy starting at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so that's coming up in just about an hour and a half. Stardom, their American Dream show, that's a pay-per-view on Triller TV at 3 Eastern. And then tonight, WrestleCon's Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show is happening at 6 Eastern from the Pearl Theater at the Palms. That's going to be on both Triller TV Plus and the High Spots Wrestling Network. It's the first time the show's been on Triller TV Plus, so that's a nice addition because that's always a great show each year. West Coast Pro has a show at 6 Eastern on High Spots. Tonight, we have AEW Collision, obviously not in Vegas, but will be airing on TNT. John, you are going to be on TNA extensive duty tonight because not only are you going to be covering the Unbreakable pay-per-view, you're watching the 2-hour Impact lead-in. So you're going to get like 5 hours of TNA tonight.
Yeah, a lot of TNA. It's the unofficial countdown to Unbreakable, even though it's just a tape show from weeks ago. They're just kind of utilizing. When they first announced this Unbreakable show, I'm like, oh, it's going to air after Impact. I wonder if they're just going to forego Impact that day. But no, they're, like you said, they're going to go ahead and air the 2-hour regular access TV followed by Unbreakable. Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with the build to this. I know the main focus is really this new title that they've introduced to replace the Digital Media Championship. Now it's the TNA International Championship. And as a tribute, I guess, to Unbreakable 2005, every single match is a 3-way. And then it's 3 ways, and the winners of those 3 ways fight in the final to determine the first ever international champion. You got this barbed wire massacre match with Sami Callihan and Mance Warner. They've been feuding for weeks on end. And then the one thing of note is Moose has an open challenge for his X Division title. Obviously it's in Vegas, so anybody could show up. So I think that's always has my interest. Whenever these shows have surprise guests and you don't know who's in town, that kind of steps it up a little bit. In the past, TNA has been doing like these multiverses of matches, and I kind of expected that going into this year, especially with the relationship with NXT. So I'm a little surprised we're not getting more NXT talent on this show. Even though Stand and Deliver has a lot of talent, there's a lot of NXT talent that's not wrestling this week. So I'm surprised that there's no NXT representation at all on Unbreakable tonight.
Yeah, so you have Sami Callihan against Mance Warner in the barbed wire massacre match. And then in the 3 triple threat matches, we have Eddie Edwards, Steve Macklin, and Ace Austin in one match, Eric Young, Zachary Wentz, and JDC in the second one, and then AJ Francis, and at this time, 2 mystery opponents.
Well, no, I think he had already advanced on last week's. I think he's already in the finals because I think he had if I'm not mistaken.
I understand. I understand. So it's the 2 winners earlier that will meet AJ Francis. Yep. That's right. They did set that up. Moose has, as John mentioned, he has challenged a high flyer. Personally, I'd prefer the Warlord in this situation. I think the Warlord could have a low-key big weekend along with Michael Oku. The Hardys teaming with Mike Santana against Mustafa Ali and the Nemeth. I think Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali are having like the most compelling story that is just totally flying under the radar. Like it does tell you a little bit about just the TNA reach. I mean, it's just but they've been doing some really great stuff between them. I'm very surprised the Hardys did not somehow end up on that stand and deliver card on Saturday. I thought that would be a given when they started doing a lot of this cross promotion. And then Joe Hendry and Masha Slamovich against Frankie Kazarian and Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah,
Las Vegas reacts to Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah, I mean, they have their Rebellion show, like, not even on the 27th of this month, so it's not too far. So that match is pretty much to set up those 2 world title matches. But yeah, overall, seems like a pretty decent show. Not like, top tier TNA pay-per-views. Their TNA Plus specials are always like kind of on the low end. But there's always like 1 or 2 good things coming out of it. So I'm intrigued for sure. The fact that it's in Vegas, like I said, you never know who might show up. So that always is an interesting factor going into it.
Yeah, and a programming note that at the end of the month for Rebellion on April 27th, John and I will be doing a show that night. So we will be talking TNA extensively. Prestige is doing a free show on YouTube at 10 Eastern tonight. This is from Meet Las Vegas. This is one of Michael Oku's 4 shows today. He'll be taking on El Fantasmo on that card. It's got a no DQ match for the Prestige Championship with Alan Angels defending against Calvin Tankman, Leon Slater against Kevin Blackwood, Adam Priest against Minoru Suzuki. Suzuki also pretty heavily booked going through all of these cards. The show I'm really looking forward to is Bloodsport tonight, 11 Eastern on Triller TV Plus from the Pearl at the Palms. Our lineup includes this is pretty much a GCW versus WWE show. It is with inclusion of New Japan here. Josh Barnett taking on Gabe Kidd, Natty Neidhart, don't call her Natalia, against Miyu Yamashita, Pete Dunne against Timothy Thatcher, Shinya Aoki versus Charlie Dempsey, Karrion Kross against J.R. Kratos, Zack Sabre Jr. against Jonathan Gresham, Konami against Shayna Baszler, Tavion Heights versus Royce Isaacs, Layla Hirsch versus Jordan Blade, and Micah from Stardom taking on Carmen Petrovich.
Yep, and Jimmy Smith and Tom Lawler on commentary.
That's right. That's as much of an intrigue for me on top of it. I think the commentary should be excellent on this show. And the commentary has always been like a nice add-on, whether it's been Lenny Leonard. Like they have always had the right people for these shows as well. And yeah, having Jimmy Smith and Tom Lawler should be I thought it was a great duo when they announced that last week.
Yeah, shout out to the commentary team for Dragon Gate USA last night. It was actually Joe Dombrowski, who's been doing MLW, as well as Rich Bocchini, who used to be part of NXT and WWE back in the day as Rich Brennan. But yeah, this show, I love Bloodsport, whether it's attending live or watching it on at home. Always enjoy it. The shows in the past, I feel like were more like interpromotional. Like, I think the last show I went to in Brooklyn had like talents from TNA, New Japan, Ring of Honor, WWE, NXT. This one's more like WWE heavy, with the exception of, like you said, Gabe Kidd in the main event. But yeah, I'm really intrigued. I'm intrigued to see some of the first timers here, like a Natty Neidhart. Never seen her out of the WWE system, and her shedding the Natalia name and going by Natty Neidhart and seeing her training videos definitely has me intrigued going into this. But yeah, Bloodsport I feel like never disappoints. It's a very quick show. Like, it just kind of, it gets to it. There's no real like storylines going into it, just match after match after match. You never know how it's going to end, when it's going to end. So I think that element, it's the closest thing to UFC to me without watching MMA. I'm not a fan of MMA, so this is the closest thing I can get to. This is my fix, I guess.
If you're staying up late tonight, 2 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast, for all the CM Punk fans, Marvelous is doing a show on the High Spots network. Highlight of that is Aja Kong wrestling on this. You've also got Shuri, Takumi Aroha, Rina Yamashita, Masha Slamovich. Nyla Rose is going to be on this show, part of the AEW Witness Protection Program. And then Progress is running at 3 a.m. Eastern, midnight Pacific time on Triller TV Plus with Luke Jacobs against who else but Michael Oku for the Progress title. This is going to be crazy for Oku as well. I just wanted to go backwards because the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show that we looked over, I'm definitely going to try my best to watch this one tonight. It's at 6 Eastern, and it's got Minoru Suzuki against Butterbean with Dan Severn as the special referee. Yeah, we forgot to mention the Bloodsport. They will also have guests on hand, including Severn, Mark Kerr, I think as well, Tank Abbott. And there's a fourth one in there as well. Is it Mark Coleman? I don't think it is Mark Coleman. But anyway, there's going to be some MMA veterans, legends that'll be in attendance at Bloodsport. But back to the Memorial Super Show. Flip Gordon with Hechicero and fill in the blank. Michael Oku against Zack Sabre Jr., Shane Haste, and Bad Dude Tito. Maki Ito against Mickey James. This has a chance to be the show stealer. Mascara Dorada against Ninja Mac, which is just going to be totally nuts. Matt Riddle against Matt Makowski, and a 10-man tag match where all the participants are mystery entrants. And knowing the matchmaking that they do for this Mark Hitchcock show every year, I'm sure this 10-man tag is just going to be one of those totally weird mystery vortex reveals of all the loose parts in and around Las Vegas that are thrown into this match.
Yeah, the Hitchcock shows are always like a mixture of just like really wacky matches like Suzuki and Butterbean and the actual real great wrestling. So I always enjoy the Hitchcock shows. I found out just like you did that it's going to be streaming on Triller Plus, and I was ecstatic because that's like one of the shows I always want to watch, but I don't feel like paying for another service or having to go to another website just to watch the one show. So I'm actually really happy that's all under one umbrella this year. And yeah, I didn't realize Michael Oku is literally I have all the cards in front of me, and he's pretty much on like all these shows. But you're burying the lead. The first match, he has to get through the first match, being at 2 p.m. today at the Defy show against a one Evil. So he has to stand against Evil before he can have 8 other matches today. So we'll see how that goes.
Is this literally the only thing Evil is doing this weekend? Is he just coming over for this Defy show?
I guess so. It looks like it. It's kind of. I wonder why. Like there's no other New Japan talent on here. Like Kenta's on it, but he's representing Noah. So I don't know why he is just randomly on this one Defy show. Yeah, it looks like this is the only show that he's probably booked for.
Yeah, this is like one of the weirder Defy lineups. Like you have Kenta and Mance Warner, Michael Oku and Evil, Rock and Roll Express against Ricky Gibson and Eddie Pearl, Clark Connors, El Phantasmo, and men like Darius in a 3-way, Nicole Matthews with Riho, Liza Hall against Viva Van, Vert Vixen, and Amira, and then the Bollywood Boys and Galeno Del Mal against Negro Casas, Cody Chun, and Guillermo Rosas. Just wild. You're going to get Negro Casas and the Bollywood Boys in a match together. That's the kind of matchmaking you get Mania weekend. And yeah, there's the Stardom show at 3. And I mean, it's one of the points I brought up this week is that outside of what Stardom and TNA, which are like a la carte pay-per-views you have to buy on Triller, pretty much like you have Peacock or Netflix that covers all your WWE stuff that they're broadcasting and a Triller TV Plus sub, and you're getting almost all of the shows, even the Hitchcock one that is on both High Spots and Triller TV Plus. So it's a relatively like inexpensive set of shows this weekend to follow along the vast majority of them.
Yeah, definitely a lot easier. Like I said in the past, like you'd have to go to like the High Spots Network or IWTV to watch everything. But yeah, for the majority, like most of the bulk of the shows are on Triller TV. There's some like shows running on YouTube, some free shows and whatnot. But yeah, you can just pretty much stay within Triller Plus. And like Gray Stream says in the chat, this is what I did. I signed up for the 7-day trial yesterday, so I'm not paying a dime for any of these shows. Yeah. I feel like I'm cheating the system. Hopefully they're not listening.
We have no affiliation with Triller TV at all, so I'm going to make that out clear. We're basically giving them you can watch this for free. So,
but they're literally promoting it like that. I got an email from Triller yesterday saying sign up for our 7-day trial. So they want people. It's kind of like the WWE Network method that you were talking about on the History of WrestleMania podcast. Great job on that, by the way, where they just want people to sign up for it and with hope of maybe they'll just forget next week and they'll get charged for the.
Well, it was like, granted, I don't know if this is like the same. But when Peacock streamed like the Olympics last year, it was like part of the like unexpected part was you knew you were going to get the big bump. It's the Summer Olympics. It's on Peacock, but the churn was a lot lower than they expected. A lot of people just stayed with the service, and like that's obviously the calculus here that Triller TV is making, in that we're going to give away our biggest weekend with the hopes that maybe 60% of the people that sign up are going to drop it on Monday morning, but if 40% hold on to it for another month, that's considered a win for us, or whatever your number is for success to grab those subscribers. So, I mean, for you, the consumer, I mean, it is like we're talking about a world where if you want to be a UFC fan, like you're spending basically over $100 a month for your subscription and to buy a pay-per-view, and you're spending a fraction of that for all of this Mania weekend stuff that you have. So it's
really quick question. It's safe to say this is probably the one year where WWE is mostly involved with a lot of these like wrestling shows, whether it be the ID show or the Bloodsport shows. Are you surprised there hasn't been more like promotion for it? Obviously I don't expect it on TV, but on their social media, I know they're promoting like the ID shows, like they have their own Twitter page and whatnot, but I feel like I haven't heard anything Bloodsport related from WWE. Maybe the talent themselves have been promoting it. I know Natty obviously has been promoting it, but are you surprised that like the company themselves aren't really pushing it? They're not like counter programming. I know WWE has like 100 shows this week, but I feel like they don't have anything going up against Bloodsport tomorrow. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't expect much out of them, like certainly nothing on broadcast, but I mean, maybe you'll get some stuff online, like maybe some clips will make it to WWE's YouTube or some of their social channels. That to me would be the extent of it. I think it's like we want to have the perception that our doors are open, that we are not trying to suffocate the outside companies that are running Mania weekend. We're working with a select few of them, and that's I think it's probably good for WWE to have that. To be trying to cultivate that reputation among fans, that they're not trying to, like, we're not in the days anymore where WWE would try and get a block on wrestling shows that can compete in a certain area of their location and such, and try to send shows outside of the city and stuff like that. But yeah, I think there is a line though of like how much they are going to be pushing people for signing up for competing services or spending money on non-WWE shows. But there's a value there, a small one for WWE, I think, just to have their participation on like a Bloodsport. And will Nick Khan attend Bloodsport for the second year in a row? That's the big question.
I was literally just about to ask you that. Is he going to have any interactions with Gabe Kidd, the opponent of one Josh Barnett? I just want to see that interaction between Gabe Kidd and Nick Khan. And the one person who has really kind of shined this week is I think the 9-year-old son of Nick Khan, who was given like fake spoiler results for WrestleMania at the Bill Collins podcast. So he's holding all the secrets close to his chest.
Yeah, if you missed the Bill Simmons show, he had given his son the wrong information about who was going to win the Royal Rumble. And yeah, he worked his kid. Yeah. That's Nick Khan. He holds it very, very close to the vest. We'll wrap up in just a few minutes, but looking ahead, specific to all of the WWE shows, both in-ring and the non-wrestling events that they are presenting this weekend, what jumps out at you that has your most interest? Let's set aside the 2 nights of Mania.
I'm always a fan of the Hall of Fame. Obviously, those shows can go really long, but as you and me know, our 2X Speed is one of our best friends, and that's probably my best friend this entire week is that 2X Speed thing. So I'll definitely be kind of dipping into that. It's a really long, late airtime for the Hall of Fame, but I'll at least try to catch some of the speeches. I do want to see if there's any chatter of this roast to WrestleMania that's coming, that's not being filmed or not being shown at least. But I am interested if there's going to be any comments coming out of that. So I'll be looking.
I'm sure that. WWE is filming this because they filmed their other stuff. Like they film the Undertaker stuff. They film everything. The question is if any of this makes it out. It would be interesting if some of it is ever released. I think there is that novelty. Like if you look, like this is a relatively small venue that they're running for the Hall of Fame and for the roast and such, but like the roast is selling like as well as anything else that they're promoting. And it's like you have Tony Hinchcliffe headlining a comedy show. Like that is going to have appeal whether you're a WWE fan or not. I would like, yes, this is going to be a wrestling centric show, but I think that like that's the appeal as much as anything. And for wrestling fans, like it's something totally different. And that is kind of what you're looking for. If you're traveling to Vegas for wrestling, you do want to see a variety of stuff that will provide your variety on if you're not dead after WrestleMania on Sunday.
Especially when you tell people that this is a show that won't be aired or, won't be shown anywhere. That kind of gives people the more incentive to actually go to it because who knows if they're going to be able to see what's happening here. That's the thing with comedy shows. I went to a Dave Chappelle show not too long ago where they had like a mystery musical guest, which ended up being Justin Timberlake. But the second you enter there, they take your phone and they put it in this secure bag and they lock it away. So I couldn't even get a picture of Timberlake or whatever. So I'm sure it's going to be the same idea with this show where they don't want any footage to leak out. But I feel like at least, words and chatter will come out of it for sure, if anything of note is said.
Tell me about John Cena's schedule for tonight. What is your course of action for tonight that you are going to be trying to navigate?
I'm going to try to get some food in the next hour, and I'm probably going to jump right into Defy. That's the first show that's airing today. I can't miss Evil versus Michael Oku and Kenta versus Mance Warner, and a lot of pretty good matches here. So I think I'm just going to jump right into it. Why not? I got the whole day free, so I think I'm going to watch Defy to kind of work my way, through these shows. Kind of pick and choose. I'll see what the results are coming out of Cage Match. If there's many match recommendations, I always check that out to see which match stands out and kind of cherry pick as we go through. But I'm going to try to watch as many shows in full as possible, starting with Defy.
Well, we are going to be back on Friday, noon Eastern, same time, but we will be up at postwrestlingcafe.com. So if you want to join, we are not offering a 7-day trial. I apologize, but it's your best $6 that you can spend, as you will get 30 days access with the sign up, and that will include all of our WrestleMania week coverage. John mentioned it, but earlier this week, I put out a history of WrestleMania special going through each WrestleMania, the key business notes, best and worst match of each card and just overall impressions of every WrestleMania since 1985. That's up there. We have an interview with Keith Elliott Greenberg talking about his new book covering WrestleMania 3 and lots of stuff coming up this weekend. We will have shows here on the free channel Saturday and Sunday night immediately following WrestleMania. I'll be with Siino tomorrow at noon. Saturday, Siino will be with Kate from Montreal. And then Sunday at noon, it's Braden Harrington and Davey Portman who will be covering NXT Stand and Deliver and sharing their own thoughts on night one of WrestleMania. And I should give a shout out here because if you are in the Toronto area, or if you just want to make the road trip, which all of you should be, they are going to be hosting WrestleMania watch parties Saturday and Sunday night at Gabby's at 309 King Street West. And you can tickets are available at poisonrana.ca. It's $16 per night, or $25 gets you access to both nights to hang out with the Poison Rana crew. WH Park will be there night 2. Who knows who else is going to be showing up at the WrestleMania watch parties. They'll be doing trivia, karaoke, giveaways. They've secured some DX Suck It jerseys of some sort. So the place to be if you're in downtown Toronto to watch WrestleMania with a whole bunch of Poison Rana nuts. So
yeah,
that's
I've attended
my
share of Poison Rana shows, and nobody knows how to run shows just like them. It's a fantastic experience. The people there are always fun, and yeah, WH Park, you can't go wrong. And something of note, because starting today, I'll be doing some of the reports with TNA Unbreakable. At the end of the report, I'll have some recommendations on some other matches I might have seen throughout the day, and I'll continue that with my reports throughout the week.
Perfect. All right, everyone. PostWrestlingCafe.com is where to go for all of our daily coverage of WrestleMania week. We're back noon Eastern on Friday, and that wraps up our WrestleMania week show for Thursday, April the 17th. Enjoy.